Well, here is the content of my talk. I'll briefly touch upon some previous curricula. I'll mainly be taking you through a journey. It's a long journey, and the journey will start from the 1997 and continue with the 2005 in our journey. And we will briefly touch upon these components in our journey, but we will mainly be focusing upon the recent changes related to young learner teacher characteristics, young learner characteristics, and what our foreign language curriculum suggests about young learners from policy and practice aspects. And I will try to support this with relevant research in the field. And I'll continue with teachers' professional development programs, and I'll share some example practices from good teaching practices. So let's start with our journey. The year 1997 was very important in Turkish foreign language education, in education as a whole, because it marks the beginning of a major curriculum reform lasting over many years, about 4 years and so on, and ending in the year 1997.
Yasemin Hocam, we couldn't see your screen. Are you going to share your screen?
Yes, I've been sharing it.
Yasemin Hocam, I didn't want to interrupt you, but we don't.
Sorry about that. Maybe I can try. I thought you were able to see me. So
we can see you, but not the screen.
All right.
You didn't go too far.
Can you see me now?
Yes.
Can you see my screen? Okay, sorry for this.
And if you can maybe make it full screen, that would be lovely. Thank you, Hocam.
Is it all right now? Okay, great, wonderful. So today I'll take you through a journey. It's a long journey, but we will focus very briefly upon the first years, 1997 through 2005. I'll just briefly mention the changes taking place in those years, but we will mainly be focusing on the recent foreign language curriculum as related to teaching English to young learners. I'll talk about young learner and young learner teacher characteristics, and I will support it with some current research. 1997 marks the beginning of major curriculum reforms in Turkish context. Starting with the 1994 and ending in 1997, we had a major curriculum reform which involved restructuring the programs in education faculties. In 1997, we had the impact of this reform we saw the impact of this reform in primary and secondary education. And its impact was to increase primary education from the previous 5 to 8 years. English was introduced for the first time in Turkish education to grade 4 and grade 5 students, and this corresponded to ages around about 9. And the communicative language teaching was introduced along with this curriculum reform in Turkish education system, and the role of the teacher and student was redefined. The role of the teacher was seen as the facilitator of the learning process, and the student's role was seen as taking active part in the learning process. When we have a look at the objectives of the 1997 curriculum in primary education, we can see a list of nice objectives. stated by the Minister of Education. So English was introduced to in primary education to students in grade 4 and 5 in order to raise children's awareness of a foreign language. So this awareness, increasing awareness was important, as I highlighted. Promote a positive attitude towards the learning of English, because to learn English in a very entertaining way, it was important for children to have positive attitudes. Increase pupils' interest and motivation towards the English language, because this is a foreign language for them. And teachers were established to teach through establishing games, dialogues in meaningful contexts in such a way that students would learn and at the same time would entertain. Okay, as I told you, the 1997 marks the beginning of curriculum reform. I became interested in finding out what the implications of these were at practice level, at research level. So I conducted some studies in my province, Adana, where I have been living for a long time, to find out whether the teachers were able to teach in the way suggested by the curriculum. I found that there was a gap between policy and practice, and teachers were not able to create the proposed communicative learning environment. Of course, other researchers found similar things. They carried out research and they came up with similar findings. So there was a need to, in the course of time, there was a need to innovate curriculum. Why? Because changes are taking place in society, and such changes constantly demand new knowledge and skills and from the people, and they require continuous development of education system. And I can confidently state that in Turkey, the Minister of Education is trying to keep up with global changes. One global change is the curriculum framework used in other countries, particularly since Turkey is trying to be a member of European Union. I'm referring to Common European Framework of Reference, CEFR. So this also had an impact on innovating the curriculum. So in the year 2013, we had a revision of the previous curriculum. The curriculum was in fact reproduced, rewritten by a team of Turkish experts, and we had it as a kind of book. Compared to the previous one, it was much comprehensive, more detailed, and this illustration is taken from one of my studies. Based on that curriculum, I decided to illustrate the curriculum in a very pictorial form. So we have the communicative language teaching still present in the revised curriculum. We had some new trends introduced into foreign language curriculum, one of which was multiple intelligences. Content and language integrated learning was introduced. The ministry suggested introducing some, little content areas into curriculum so that students, while learning English, they would learn a little bit of mathematics, a little bit of geography, and so on. And we saw evidence of this in the textbooks. Experiential learning was very much encouraged. In other words, teachers were encouraged to set up drama, art and craft activities so that students would learn foreign language effectively. Constructivism was another notion highlighted by the curriculum. In terms of assessment, performance-based assessment and portfolio was introduced into our education system, not only in foreign language, but in other courses as well. So it was also a turning point. I'm not going to talk about the studies done. Maybe I can refer to one of my studies. Again, I wanted to find out how teachers responded to this 2013 curriculum. And I conducted some classroom observation. I talked to the teachers. And I found out that teachers were gradually getting used to this system of teaching through communicative language. Some teachers were using games, activities as suggested by the curriculum document. Some were traditional still in their teaching, but there was a group of teachers who were using a mixture of both. So there was some kind of change taking place in Turkish education system. We had another curriculum change recently in the year 2013, which is known as 4+4+4. Each 4 corresponds to one level in our education system. And so with this, we had a transition from the previous 8 years of primary education into a new education model. And this required another structural change because we had a completely new system. And along with this, the ministry followed this widespread assumption that the earlier, the better. So the starting age for learning English was lowered to grade 2, which corresponded to the age of 6 and 6.5 or 7 years old, because sometimes starting age may change. Well, the Ministry of Education underlines the main reason for this change in this quotation. I'm going to read it aloud. There is no question that the key to economic, political, social progress in contemporary Turkish society depends on the ability of Turkish citizens to communicate effectively. So we have seen this need to communicate in the 1997 curriculum, in the 2013, and we can still see it as a keyword highlighted by the ministry. So the idea is to get the Turkish citizen, particularly the growing generation, the young generation, to communicate in the target language effectively at a national level as well as at an international level. And to be able to communicate, of course, competence is highlighted, competence in English is highlighted as a key factor in the learner's ability. But also the ministry complains that despite continual efforts at improving the effectiveness of language education in Turkey, unfortunately, the document says a significant number of school leavers leave without adequate ability to interact successfully in English language medium. With this in mind, we had this new curriculum, 4+4+4. Okay, who prepared the curriculum? In the previous one, it was a team of Turkish scholars, and in this one as well, a team of Turkish scholars. So it was in fact part of a project between the ministry and TÜBİTAK. And I was also involved in this project, and we had some curriculum experts. We had experts from different fields. We had also teachers contributing to the development of this project. So we prepared the curriculum. Okay, before going into details, I'd like to, refer to the definition of a curriculum. What is a curriculum? Why are we so much interested in curriculum? There are so many definitions. I have chosen two. The first one is by Tenor. Tenor states that curriculum is the planned and guided learning experiences. As I illustrated, it is the planned one, and it is guided learning experiences and intended outcomes, because there are lots of outcomes expected from the learners in each grade, formulated through the systematic reconstruction of knowledge and experiences under the school education system. Okay, I think this is a very nice definition. So it is planned and guided learning experiences. We give learners experiences through a list of learning objectives, and these are stated according to different levels, grade 2, primary, secondary, high school, university, but our focus is school level, of course. Another definition states a framework. It is a framework for the planning and implementation of educational programs. So there are two aspects to the curriculum. There is planning macro level, at government level, at the level of ministry in Turkey and throughout the world, and implementation Implementation is done by the teachers at school. So the two goes together in harmony. It's a framework. Now, coming back to the recent curriculum, I'll talk about the principles of the ELT curriculum. In fact, with the previous curriculum, we introduced CEFR into our curriculum, but with the recent one, we had a more structured reference to Common European Framework of Reference. So the whole curriculum was designed around this framework in terms of its level, in terms of its description, and so on. In this curriculum, as in the previous ones, communicative competence is highlighted, so it's a must. And intercultural awareness is part of the curriculum because learning a foreign language involves learning a foreign culture as well. Now, intercultural awareness has become even more important in recent years, and learner autonomy. In terms of the theory, the curriculum for young learners is based on Vygotsky's sociocultural learning theory, which states that children learn best through interaction with others. Who are the others? They are parents, caregivers, teachers, even peers, in constructing their understanding of the world around them. This understanding very much affected the design of the curriculum and teaching applications worldwide. So while designing the latest curriculum, the theoretical part is formulated according to this learning theory, which is highly appropriate to the way young learners, I'm not going to use the word learn, acquire their native language, and similarly the target language as well. Krashen also in 1982 mentions acquisition requires meaningful interaction in the target language. Acquisition is very important in my view, in the opinion of many scholars, because it's similar, learning a foreign language or can be considered similar to acquiring one's mother tongue, one's L1. So acquisition requires meaningful interaction in the target language, which is the English language. It's through natural communication in which speakers are concerned not with the form of their utterances, but with the messages they are conveying and understanding. So this is very relevant to the way young learners, young children, acquire the target language. Of course, it took us almost 2 years to prepare the latest curriculum, and there was a lot of discussion about the appropriateness of it to the Turkish context. So a lot of effort has gone into producing it, and it is about, I think, almost 100 pages, this document, and it is available. It has been made available for the users, the teachers, and so on. Here we can see that Common European Framework of Reference is here, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5. We can see different grades and age groups and the language skills highlighted. As can be seen for lower levels, listening and speaking is very much important. There is very limited reading and writing, so we need to consider it as such. But as children get, older in their age, introduction of reading and writing increases. The curriculum provides a list of suggestions for different activities appropriate to different age groups, and it is a theme-based curriculum. As the focus of my talk is young learners, listening and speaking is very much important for this age group, so I'll be highlighting these two skills. What is speaking? It is the process of sharing meaning through the use of both verbal and non-verbal symbols in order to achieve effective communication in a variety of different contexts. And speaking is a critical part of the foreign language learning and teaching, and it is particularly true for primary level. Before moving further, I think it's a good idea to define who young learners are. There are different definitions in the literature, but I decided to refer to Alice. I think it's very nice and it is very appropriate to our context as well. According to Alice, we can divide learners into different age groups. They are very young learners or early starters, preschoolers, primary children, corresponding to ages 2 and 5 years old. But our main concern today is young learners in primary school who are at the age of 6 to 10 to 11. So this age corresponds very nicely to Turkish context. And young learners or early teens covering the ages 11 to 14 seem to correspond to our middle school or secondary school in the 4+4 cycle. And finally, the third age group, young adults from 15 to 17 years old, and they are included in the high school. Okay, before doing anything with young learners, we need to explore their characteristics. Because for the successful teaching of English to young learners, it is very important to understand their characteristics, as it plays a critical role in how the teachers can improve the quality of teaching and learning process, without which it is not possible to offer them a very effective teaching. So we are going to explore young learner characteristics. First of all, they are very active. Okay, they like moving around. They are extremely active. I have been observing some classes. I observed before pandemic, and I am really surprised to see some primary school children extremely active. In the classroom, they are always on the move. With this, they have very limited attention span. Their attention span, according to some scholars, is 10 minutes, but it can even be less. So they can concentrate on a particular task or an activity on a very limited time. But at the same time, they are very curious. They are very inquisitive. They'd like to explore things around them. They are egocentric. Because their world knowledge is limited, it is growing. They enjoy here and now principle and offering materials. It is important to offer them materials that they are familiar with to start with. They are very imaginative. We know this from our children, from young learner classes. They are very social, as in Vygotsky's theory. They would like to talk, they would like to interact with teachers, friends, peers, and so on. They learn indirectly. It's no good teaching them directly. It is against their cognitive development. They are receptive to new ideas. They are meaning-oriented, as suggested by our curriculum, 1997. Back in 1997, the curriculum suggested the teachers to teach through meaningful, contextualized games, activities, learning opportunities. They like imitating. They like, repetition. Sometimes drills may be may effectively be used for young learners. They enjoy fun. They are energetic. So lots of nice characteristics unique to this age group, young learners. I'm referring to learners in primary education. Teachers play a very important role in the successful implementation of the curriculum and in teaching English to young learners. First of all, as teachers, we need to understand what the curriculum suggests. And at theory level, so that we need to interpret curriculum objectives very effectively and correctly and transfer them effectively into classroom applications. So we have been having some curriculum innovation, and it's not very easy for the teachers to adapt to such changes. So their role becomes particularly important following curriculum innovation. So what about young learner teachers' characteristics? Well, they need to be patient, first of all, because we are referring to an age group that is very active and energetic. In fact, there are two types of qualities. One is personal quality. What type of qualities refer to personal qualities that young learner teachers are expected to have? Another type of quality refers to young learner pedagogy. Teachers should know young learner pedagogy very well. So let's explore these qualities. They need to be patient. They need to be open-minded because there are lots of new activities, new techniques. So they need to be exploring these to use in their lessons. They need to be innovative. When we think about children's attention span, it's very limited, so they would get bored of one activity, and the teacher needs to have another activity in plan so that he or she can apply it in order to engage students into the tasks and activities. They need to be motivating, and the motivation is one of the key elements in keeping young learners engaged and interested in the classes. They need to be motivating through using interesting tasks, activities, games, and so on. They need to be inspiring. They need to know child psychology very well so that they can communicate effectively with young children. Well, we know that young learners and adults differ in their characteristics, learning styles, and so on. All these factors need to be taken into account. They need to be caring because, we are dealing with very young children, and they need to have, with the online education, I have included technological skills. They need to possess, very effective. They need to be able to use the technology. It is true for all of us. All right. Okay. Having discussed young learner and young English teacher characteristics, then what about the research? What does the research tell us about young learner teachers? How do they teach? How effective are they in their teaching approaches? What kind of challenges do they experience? So I'm going to talk about this. Well, it's not only in Turkey, but it is various throughout the world. When we have a look at other countries' curriculum, we are likely to come across with this communicative approach, getting the students to communicate, etc., in their curriculum. So we can see a lot of commonalities across curriculum for young learners globally. Using the communicative approach, teachers need to have, first of all, good levels of English. This is very important. Or at least they need to have confidence in their ability to use English. Janet Anywhere, I'm referring to her, she has done a lot of studies with young learners and with young learner teachers, states that a primary way of helping children to participate as listeners and speakers, they are very much integrated in conversations, is for teachers to model good listening. So it's very important for young learner teacher to be a good model in terms of setting up listening and speaking, using speaking techniques. And of course, a certain level of proficiency and confidence in teachers is needed in using the target language. Because young learners are not able to grasp abstract concepts of language, such as grammatical structures. They tend to be enthusiastic, and they learn best through hands-off engaging activities that they think that such activities are fun. It's only then that true learning takes place. Well, keeping these points in mind, then the teachers can set up a variety of meaningful speaking activities and tasks which may appeal to the relevant age groups, as well as accounting for a variety of different learning styles and strategies. We know that in any class there are learners with different learning styles and multiple intelligences. Theory would be very highly appropriate, its implications to be used in the classroom. Here I have included some nice activities, but of course the list is endless. So storytelling would address learners' imagination. Well, even though they may be in grade 2 in state primary education, teachers can create, it doesn't have to be very long study, very short stories. They can improvise such stories themselves. Role play is very suitable to get the students communicate. Drama, because young learners are extremely active, they like moving. Total physical response activities would engage their, would attract their attention and would engage them into games, activities, and related tasks. Interviewing type of activities can be used. Listen and draw, listen and do different types of activities. Describe, draw type of activities. Although I'm highlighting speaking, of course, listening and speaking are very much integrated. Information gap activities can be used. These are just some of the activity types that teachers may create themselves. Of course, teachers use textbooks or course books. Textbooks are the major source of major resources that the teachers use. I checked grade 2 English textbook used in state primary education, and I have come up with lots of interesting activities. They are interesting to me, and I hope teachers, English teachers also would agree with me. Here is an activity, ask and write, for example, writing, very limited writing as the curriculum suggests. There is interaction between the students, there is communication, look and say. Type of activity coming from the English textbook. Listen and repeat. Listening and speaking is very much integrated in the current English textbooks. All right. I'd like to pause a little bit, and I'd like to give especially our pre-service teachers, teacher candidates, an opportunity to talk. I'd like you to think back over your school days. Did your English teachers follow the suggested curriculum guidelines, curriculum objectives in their teaching? This is my question, and I'd be very happy. Maybe you can write it in the chat box if you want to answer. I'm sure Melike Hoca would help us.
So Devrim says no. Yasemin Dündar says not really hocam, unfortunately. Berfin Dilara Konyar says hardly. Ulviye Keten goes unfortunately no. So far we have no's hocam.
So I was,
hardly, no, none.
You see, I mean, there is a total gap, as I mentioned at the beginning of my talk in relation to 1997 curriculum. It's a pity that we have this response. So can we say that there is a huge gap between curriculum objectives and what teachers are doing? If no, maybe we can have one or two, problems before I share with you, the research. What kind of practice were they applying? Did they ask you to do some translation?
Someone was
Can I
raising a hand.
miss?
Yes, please.
Actually, yeah, we did have some English classes, but our focus was not and never on the speaking or listening point. We just had not English lessons. In fact, we had just English grammar lessons.
As you can see, this is contrary to what the curriculum suggests. I'm sure other friends would come up with the same or with similar responses.
Rote learning, they say, grammar translation method, repeating, repetitive, and drilling, you know, for probably no good reason. We try to keep in mind the grammatical structures, focusing on grammar points. So these are what the audience shared with us, Hocam.
Okay, well, repetition is good, but it has to be done meaningfully for the children,
Sure.
the teacher, okay, for pronunciation and so on, but it has to be done purposefully. What about the research? What does the research says about problems? Well, according to studies, there are teacher-related factors and curriculum-related factors in relation to, teaching English to young learners. Copland and others in the year 2014 conducted a global study, and they wanted to find out how young learner teachers cope with listening and speaking particularly, because we are focusing on two major skills. We are addressing young learners here in different countries. And they have found that teachers find it difficult. Sorry for this mistake. I have updated, sorry. Teachers find it difficult to teach speaking, first of all. And it is true for the listening as well. Without listening, we cannot have speaking. Teaching these skills, it was found that it causes anxiety for the teachers. I mean, teaching in the target language, teaching through English causes anxiety for many English teachers. Of course, we have exceptional cases. Teachers found it difficult. Teachers found pronunciation difficult. I mean, to teach pronunciation particularly difficult. Whereas we were expecting the teachers to be a model because students get most of the input from the teachers. Another difficulty was setting up and managing speaking activities. They require certain techniques. It's no good to say, to tell children, okay, here is a short video, listen and answer. No, this is not true listening. We need to prepare our children for listening. We need to, familiarize them with lots of things through meaningful activities. Another problem was found with children. In some contexts, they found that it was difficult to get children to speak. They felt reluctant. In addition to all this, managing young learner classroom is not very easy because of the characteristics. So teachers need to use certain classroom management techniques very effectively. These were global problems related to teachers. What about curriculum? Well, teachers always complain about insufficient time allocated to young learner curriculum, particularly in state schools. We have 2 lessons weekly for grade 2 and grade 3, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry. And yes, they say, well, this is insufficient for us to set up and carry out communicative activities. And researchers also identify some problems related with materials. In our country, ministry provides materials free of charge. And when I look at the materials, and I found them really attractive, and they are, sorry, they also accompany, CDs as well, and some studies are available. To me, materials are nice, but we need to explore it with the teachers. So, teachers, young learner teachers are experiencing some problems. How can we support the teachers in this respect? Through teachers' professional development opportunities. We need to provide some professional development opportunities to teachers. And the ministry has been offering such opportunities. Studies show that when teachers receive some professional support, they increase feeling of empowered. They feel empowered themselves. They gain better understanding of the age group they teach. They undergo observable professional development in their teaching practice, and they become critical. And they become critical of their previous teaching techniques when they start using very innovative, very nice, very interesting techniques as a result of, learning them in their professional development programs. They develop collaborative relationship. They get to know other teachers facing similar problems. So they learn from their experiences and so on. So professional development programs are believed to be essential and useful in supporting teachers and in solving their challenges. Now I'd like to refer to the professional development program I have set up with the teachers following this curriculum. My program started in the year 2014 and it lasted for 2 years. It was sponsored by TÜBİTAK. It was done part of a project. And I wanted to find out how teachers were doing with grade 2 children in state schools, because I know that in private institutions, they receive lots of professional development programs. So it is published in this book. As a chapter, but I'll be referring to that study now. I'll briefly talk about the program itself. First of all, I carried out a needs analysis in Adana. I try to involve all grade 2 teachers teaching in state school. And I asked, how do you feel about teaching English in grade 2? How do you see the ministry's decision to lower the start age? Without any exception, all the teachers, or most of them, with 1 or 2 exceptions maybe, they agreed with the idea that the earlier the better. they welcome this idea of teaching at a younger age, or introducing English at a younger age, which was very nice, I thought. And when I asked them how they feel themselves about teaching this age group, and there were different answers. Some felt happy, some said we need some help because they had been teaching maybe adults and they needed to know child pedagogy and so on. So the third question was, would you be interested in participating in a professional development program? And there was a very high interest. So I selected 10 teachers because working as a full-time in our job and working with teachers over a long period of time would not be possible with a large number of teachers. Because it was part of a project, I was the coordinator. I had 2 teacher educators with me, helping me. We decided to work with 10 English teachers for 1 year as a longitudinal study. Our aim was to mentor them and to try to solve their problems together with them. All right, we didn't consider ourselves as a kind of authority. We didn't want to impose any ideas. We wanted to explore this together with the teachers. So I'm now going to illustrate some examples from good practices. Okay, this comes from the 2 teachers I was mentoring. The 2 teachers, they were very experienced teachers. 2 teachers, 2 female teachers working in the same school. They had between 8 to 10 years of teaching experience. What was their problem that we wanted to solve with them? The problem, as stated by the teachers, was that they said, we are interested in using games and activities. We are teaching activity-based in our classes. But when we use games, our class becomes very chaotic. It turns into competition among the students. So this is in line with young learner characteristics that I illustrated. So it was very understandable. So, well, it was a major problem. They were desperate, and I was there with other teacher educators to help them. We did some research with the teachers, and we suggested them some articles, some websites, and so on. And these two teachers collaboratively decided to set up some engaging tasks in their classes through using group works and through applying cooperative projects in order to promote cooperation rather than competition among children, which they did under our mentorship very effectively. So the action they took was to build a highly imaginative teamwork on a classroom project, which eventually was named as Making a Noun Tree. Now I'm going to illustrate it. Teachers in their classes separately, individually, set up group work. Each group was focusing on one type of noun because these are grade 2 children and these come from the curriculum. All right, this group is focusing on numbers, as you can see. With the help of teachers, they cut out these nice shapes. So another group focused on stationaries. So another group focused on colors. So they are engaged, they are focused, as can be seen. They are very much busy, their attention is focused on the task itself. After completing these tasks, the teachers had prepared a tree, and each group posted their work on the tree. We can see numbers, colors, stationaries. So this has become a classroom project, and the students were very much engaged, very much focused on the task. There was cooperation rather than competition. So the teachers were very happy, as they stated in their discussion we had with them. Another teachers, I worked with 5 teachers, and this comes from the project conducted by 2 teachers. They were very experienced teachers. First of all, they were very nice teachers. When I asked them what kind of problem they had, they said students forget what they learn quickly. As we saw in the characteristics of young children, they learn very quickly, but they can forget very quickly. So this was a very critical problem that we wanted to solve with the teachers. What did we do? I asked the teachers what they were doing, what kind of materials they were using in their lessons, and I found out that the teachers were mainly teaching, textbooks, through the textbooks. Okay, the textbook was nice. I observed their classes, very nice, very colorful, but there was nothing else the teachers were using. So I suggested using some real objects and images to help learners, to make association between, as I will illustrate, whatever the topic and the real object. So this may sound very simple, but it turned out to be one that is solving a big problem. Action using colorful balloons and the poster of a rainbow. So we prepared, this on the board and different colors, balloons and a rainbow, and then we introduced the teachers to using real objects, because this was the first time the students would be using real objects in this lesson. So the topic was color, or the teacher had taught it before, but again, students had forgotten it. What happened was that in the classroom, I was there present, the students were touching the objects and, recognizing the colors and making proper association between the color and the object. They were coming to the board and touching the board, etc. So they were playing with the real objects and so on. So in order to see whether this technique has been effective or not, well, I asked the teacher to ask the following week, the colors. And there was a high rate of students remembering the true colors. And in order to see the effect of this more, the retention effect of this technique, we asked the students 2 weeks later, questions related to color, and they were able to remember. So it worked very effectively. in the classroom, and the two teachers got used to using not only the textbooks in their classes, but some other materials. They don't have to be very expensive materials, you know, real fruits and vegetables from their home they were bringing, or some other, you know, toys and things like that. So mentoring the teachers and helping them with their problems in grade 2 classes. Of course, there are so many other examples, but you know, I'm now able to show you only 2 examples. Learning from professional experience. At the end of this 1 year, and those 10 teachers teaching in different state schools to young learners, we mentored. When we asked them what kind of benefits they got from this professional support, they were able to deepen their knowledge of how to teach grade 2 students effectively. They were able to increase their awareness of new practices, as I have illustrated here, in teaching English to this younger age. They were able to gain considerable support from us as the mentor about novel practices and solve contextual problems effectively, because each teacher were having different type of problem. Another teacher was having classroom management problem that I worked with her, and we worked really very hard towards solving classroom management, and we achieved it, and it was a great challenge, not only for the teacher, but for me as well. And they were able to feel more confident, more motivated in teaching English to grade 2 students, and this was our aim, to help the teachers and to mentor them. Okay, to sum up, we started off talking about the policy, and we have ended with some practice and some examples from classroom implementation of teachers to young learners. There should be a balance between policy and practice. And our teacher candidates here, when I asked them, they said our teachers were never using, you know, such things. They were teaching grammar-based, form-focused, and so on. So this shows that unfortunately there is not that much balance between policy and practice, but ideally there should be. Teaching young learners is fun, at the same time extremely demanding and challenging. But we can make it easier through, you know, working with teacher educators, through attending to professional development opportunities, through exploring technology, and so on. And so different educational websites, and so on. And in this challenging process, teachers they need, in fact, to be supported to help them accommodate new ideas, because by accommodating new ideas, I mean teaching each age, different age, may require different teaching techniques, different approaches, and so on. They may have different, you know, they have different cognitive maturity, and so on. We need to know this. So teachers may need help to accommodate new ideas and transfer them into their instructional practices to achieve effective implementation of curriculum, so that we can achieve this balance between policy and practice. I have some references. I'd like to thank you very much for your patience, for listening to me. I'm sure we have time. I would be very happy to have your comments, your suggestions, and if you have any question. I haven't read, Melikeciğim, anything written in the chat box. I would be very happy to.
So I tried my best to read some of the reactions when you posed a question, Hocam. Thank you so much. You've been speaking for over an hour, and after a certain point, you had this, you know, throat. I think speaking too much hurt your throat, and I felt really bad, Hocam. Thank you so much for informing us. You, at the beginning, you said this would be a journey. You would take us on a journey. And I think it was a mind-blowing journey today. Thank you so much. Quite informative, a thorough presentation that really laid out so many different peoples, you know, some really well-known scholars in the field like Copeland, Enover, you know, and your work especially. So thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. So there are some reactions in the chat box, if I can read. People are thanking you. Audience, if you have any comments, questions, either turn on your microphone and talk to us, or you know, write something in the chat box, and I will be more than happy to read it for us. So people are thanking Hocam. Yeah, we can't thank you enough, I think. Collectively thanking at this point. Any questions? Okay, so Nazlı Hanım says, Yasemin Hocam, do you think that we need a more local curriculum, or do they teachers have more flexibility in implementing the curriculum or varying the activities? The teachers, I think.
It's a very nice question. Thank you, Nazlı Hocam. Well, in fact, when we were preparing this curriculum, we mentioned it in the curriculum that, okay, curriculum is a framework. Of course, the teachers can use different activities, but first of all, our starting point should be the curriculum. Let's say grade 2. What are the objectives? Teaching colors. Okay, if the textbook is not interesting, if does not meet students' interest, needs, etc., we can replace it with different sets of materials to teach that objective. So the teachers should already have this flexibility. I mean, the textbook is there just you know, as a source of material, but teachers can use definitely different activities. The objectives have been well established after a long discussion, after a long research. So as long as we follow the curriculum in terms of objectives, definitely curriculum does allow the teachers for that flexibility.
Hocam, you mentioned that in your research that got published in Zane and Garton's book, the book chapter, that was quite recent actually. So that was it based on grade 2 only, or was it covering grade 3 and grade 4 as well?
No, in fact, I'm talking about my mentoring experience to grade 2 teachers as part of this project. But you know, the techniques we just focused on grade 2. Why? Because teaching grade 2 students was a brand new thing for the teachers. So we thought teachers would have really problems. So we better start with grade 2. But you know, the same philosophy would
be applicable to
for any age level, as well as we continue, you know, working with the teachers. It is directly related to grade 2.
Ayşe Hocam says hi. Ayşe Kızıldağ from Çukurova University.
Nice to meet you, Ayşe Hocam. Turn on your camera, please.
Anıl Hocam says thank you. Oh, sure, Anıl Hocam. Thank you for coming, for joining. Şule Çelik is raising a hand. Şule?
Yeah, Yasemin Hocam, I'd like to thank your presentation. I'm also one of the teacher trainer from Uludağ University, and I'm trying to train our students here. And I'm trying to become expert in teaching English to young learners. And I have several questions, by the way. I know the curriculum. I think we don't have any problems about the curriculum. Okay, we see very perfect ideas in the curriculum. And based on my observation and my experiences, third grade students, for example, are trying to create several materials and set several child-appropriate activities when they are, let's say, teacher trainees. But when they become primary level teachers, I don't know what happened to them. And although they say, yeah, storytelling is good, yeah, and I also asked today, and because from the morning till now, I've been talking about telling stories and setting drama activities. And I asked this question, let's remember, and similar to your question, let's remember your previous courses in the past, and did any teacher, okay, and when you were in primary school, secondary school, high school, did any teacher, for example, tell story to you, nobody said yes. Okay, so in I think teaching English to young learners field, we say okay, storytelling and teaching to children with the help of puppets, etc. Theoretically, we are saying the same thing always. We always say the same things. And what happens in the classroom? And I tried several things. I went state preschools and state primary schools, and I tried to tell stories. And I believe its power. And I could observe advantages. But although, for example, in the curriculum, we are following the new curriculum, storytelling, games, etc. And especially, I have one question about, for example, 4 skills, because I have difficulty in explaining to my students listening and speaking based, and it's good then. No reading, no writing, only 10, for example, words for 2nd graders. And it, I can justify it because we have only 2 hours per week. But when we check the course books, and in every activity, I mean, there are several reading-based, I don't want to say exercises, activity-like things there. And teachers have difficulty in combining integration of 4 skills there. Prominent, for example, listening, speaking, and secondarily reading, writing, but how? And when I set these tasks, they had really difficulty in finding out appropriate genre. And I say, what are you reading? Sentence. Don't say I'm reading sentence. Please try to find out unit appropriate, for example, short and limited to 10 words, for example, genre. And they say they don't think about, for example, reading WhatsApp message. So we need to integrate into course books to have teachers, I think, yeah, firstly listening, speaking, later reading, writing, but how? I think they don't find their ways. And what is your idea about this one? We have well-organized curriculum, I believe this. Very good suggestions there. But in terms of practical aspects, with the help of new course books, primary school teachers have difficulties. I wonder your ideas about this issue and how can we help them here?
I mean, the curriculum says there is reading, writing, but very limited, of course.
Very limited, yes.
In grade 2, they become, you know, it's like awareness raising type of thing in reading, writing. The answer is very difficult.
Yeah, really difficult. And I have really difficulties in explaining all those points. Try to think about short one. But when we open course books, Hocam, let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you see several written aspects. How can we deal with all those aspects? And I don't know what to say. And this is the correct one, please. And later we say private sector and private schools, state schools, private school, state schools, and we compare all those points. And I don't believe the problematic aspects of the curriculum, but what are our real problems here in Turkey? And is there anybody, for example, teaching to young learners in real classrooms and explain to us?
Do we have any
Feel free to share any teachers teaching young learners among us?
For example, what might be the reasons for not using stories? And we say storytelling, okay, setting games, okay, but what might be the difficulties for you? And because they are able to tell stories and set activities, and here at the university level, when they are students, but later what happens?
They leave everything at the university, you mean, Şule Hocam?
Maybe, I don't know.
There is little or less effort to transfer them into practice. I mean, stories by stories, we don't mean that they have to be very, very long. Very short stories.
Very short one, yeah, I mean. Lack of motivation, I wonder that aspect. For example, getting grades is something motivational thing, and I wonder this aspect. And how can we motivate our teachers to use child-appropriate activities?
Well, I believe this is the difference between state and primary school. In schools, Melike Hocam, you would, you know this from your institution. In private, I mean, from my students as well, in private primary, secondary, high schools, there is pressure on the teachers. They have to use these
capacity.
activities, you know,
Yeah.
stories, everything that you have
Mhm.
mentioned. But yeah, sometimes there is this tendency. We are unable to practice this in state schools. When I hear this, I try to change people's or teachers' attitude towards this. We can do everything in state schools. And there are very, very effective teachers in state schools applying all these. But the problem is that they may not represent a larger section of the teachers in the country. Okay, so as I illustrated,
cases
I mean,
maybe.
textbook-bound teaching, this is what is in the textbook. We need to teach this, but there are also very good teachers not doing so. I have observed some state schools, high schools in Adana for this school practicum course, and I was really surprised to see children as very fluent speakers of English. They were very competent. They were at C2 level almost. They were very productive in their speaking ability.
Mhm.
We have, but unfortunately, it is not very systematic. You are right.
Thank
I
you,
think we
Yasemin.
need to work with the teachers more.
Yeah, I'm trying to do all those things. Thank you.
I know I read your publications and thank you for joining. You are also doing very nice things related to
Thank
young
you.
learners. Şöyle hocam.
Utku Doğancı goes, well, I was going to ask a similar question. It's obvious students cannot reach the level that the curriculum aims at. Actually, you have mentioned several things related to this topic, but I would like to learn more about your ideas on why educational change fails. So the question is asked based on an assumption. And
Yes, very nice question. Thank you. Well, the educational change is intended to bring out, you know, some innovation, some novelty, aiming to overcome such problems. But I mean, the intention is the ministry's ideal aim is to have the students reach B2 level at the end of high school, B2 level, B2 level. Yes, we do have such students, but we need to know the percentage of such students. I mean, I gave an example in which the students were extremely fluent speakers of English. They were able to speak on any topic, but that school may be an exceptional one. Anatolian High School, it was Anadolu Lisesi State School.
Yeah, that was an example.
There should be continuity. I mean, we have this primary curriculum, secondary school, high school. There should be continuity. I mean, students starting secondary schools should be at certain level, whatever level, A2 level of English proficiency. And at the end of middle school, they should reach what level? Let's say B1, all school. If we can achieve this, then there would be no problem. Of course, there are many factors. I mean, teacher-related, student-related. Curriculum remains very much abstract there, then we cannot get things done effectively in practice.
Hocam, do you think there should be an exit sort of examination, like when they're exiting middle school or when they're ending the primary education, maybe an examination that checks how far or how close they are to those aimed proficiency levels?
Yes.
And maybe that's one of the factors that really factor in and really give us this not so wanted result of poor competency, students not being able to speak or communicate effectively, and not so motivated to be part of this actually very exciting and wonderful journey of learning, exploring another language, figuring out another culture. I think oftentimes, and this is maybe part of the problem, English language is seen as a subject, just like mathematics, just like, you know, science. or history classes, and it's actually, yes, it's a course that is being offered, but at the same time it is much beyond, you know, that. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but
Totally.
yeah. So there is this lack of awareness of the importance of learning another language, I think, and we need to highlight that. So that's maybe another responsibility over the shoulders of, you know, the researchers, the scholars in this field,
Educators, exactly. Yes.
educators, exactly.
Yes, I totally agree. It would also affect, I mean, students would have a target to be able to graduate from this school, primary school. I need to, you know, be able to speak at that level. I need to be able to communicate, you know, as described in the CEFR. That's why we have this. It's similar to doing an MA or PhD at an American university. You need to get certain, you know, points from those tough exams, TOEFL, IELTS, and so on. Well, these topics have been discussed a lot, you know, in conferences, in different occasions.
Maybe it's a pending issue up in the air. They will figure it
Yes.
out hopefully soon. Let's be optimistic, huh, hocam? Any other comments, questions from our lovely audience? I guess not, hocam. Oh, Ayşe hocam is raising a hand.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you
Hi.
for the presentation. Hello, hocam. It's lovely to see you all here together. It's been a while, actually, that we haven't met in one of these events. Thank you, Melike hocam, for arranging this. Although I haven't attended this session, the presentation part, because I was at another session with the Swedish Institute. But anyway, I caught up this discussion session, which which I'm so excited about. Hocam, yes, the reforms are important, the education, the teacher training is important, but also at the same time, things are happening so fast these days, probably because of that. You know, just last year, the pandemic was announced, like it's been quite 13 months, I suppose by now, and most of the teachers were not even ready, were not even aware of what they were going to do. This itself even requires another reform, I suppose. Don't you think so?
Online education, teacher qualities, teacher characteristics,
yes,
similarly learner responsibilities in online education, definitely.
Yes, hocam, and also in our teacher education program, curriculum, ELT curriculum, we were not very prepared for this. I mean, how many courses do you know about online teaching and learning and teaching, you know? There is only one course, I think. There's still only one course, including the electives, I suppose it makes not more than 3 courses. So with only 3 courses, without the lecturers, professors using all those materials throughout the, you know, courses, it's not possible to have this reform at one night, overnight, or over a year, I suppose. We are still struggling as professors, lecturers, and also the teachers at Ministry of National Education schools, public schools, or private schools are still
The
struggling
students
with
and the parents.
Yes, everyone is
I want
struggling.
to bring up another angle to the discussion.
And the teachers are themselves trying to equip themselves, not in a systematic way. So I mean, the reforms that you're talking, because I know your papers, that's why I'm saying, are all related with teacher education as well. That's what I wanted to talk about. That's what I wanted to say. Probably you mentioned, but you might also comment on it. I don't know.
Thank you for your comment, Ayşe.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Zeynep hocam says, thank you hocam for this insightful presentation. You're welcome hocam. Thank you for joining us. I think this is really the end of our event. Thank you hocam. I can't thank you enough for your time, for this valuable feedback, presentation, and a lot of insightful and really hands-on, right from the site, the research sites, very direct, first-hand, that's the word that I was looking for, first-hand information that you shared with us tonight. We're quite informed, and thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, our audience, for joining us. It was a much more enjoyable event thanks to your comments, your questions, and your participation. Yeah, that's all I can say, Hocam.
Thank you very much, Melikeciğim, for inviting me. I really enjoy
Hocam.
being with you, seeing you. Thank you very much. I hope my talk has been useful for the audience. Thank you very much.
Sure, Hocam. Thank you. And
Thank you.
the rest of your day. And we will see each other maybe in another event. Thank you.
Inshallah.
And good evening.
Take care. Good evening. Thank you very much.
Goodbye, teacher.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Helen. Goodbye. Bye.